In the digital world, there's the Control-Z shortcut. You can undo an action, erase a line, or rewrite code. In my world, Marble doesn't forgive mistakes. Hello friends, I'm Andre, and this is the Relievio channel. Here I show how living stories are born from cold blocks, and how ordinary walls turn into complex bas-reliefs. I'm often asked, sometimes with genuine surprise, Andre, why does working with natural stone cost so much? And today, I don't want to answer with cliches about inspiration, art, or the muse. Today, I want to talk to you about the other side of my profession, the part that usually stays behind the scenes, the risks, the nerves, and of course, the money. I sat down and calculated what a mistake in my work actually costs, from a tiny chip to a micro crack that can wipe out 6 months of project creation. By the end of this video, we'll add these figures up into a single total. And I think you'll look at every sculpture and bas relief you see in a whole new way. There's a golden rule that I learned once and for all through pain. You can cut it off, but you can't glue it back, so the stone stays alive. This is probably the most expensive lesson in our profession. Imagine the situation. You're working on a project, you've already spent weeks carving facial features, you're in a flow state. You want to make the shape even more elegant, even finer. And then, one wrong move, you press the tool a bit too hard, the bit goes a bit too deep in the nose or earlobe area, and you hear that characteristic sound. A delicate detail just falls off. Let's translate those emotions into hard numbers. How much does such carelessness cost? If you're lucky and a small fragment that doesn't carry a load chips off, we can try to save it. It's a precision operation. Drilling, installing pins, using special glue. We call that a close call. But even a close call like that will cost between 300 and 800 euros just for restoration materials and time. If the fragment is significant and requires complex artistic masking so the seam isn't visible, even under a magnifying glass, the bill will rise to 3,000 euros. But there's a scenario that haunts masters in their nightmares. It's when a mistake ruins the essential proportions of the piece. For example, you cut off too much volume and the figure loses its shape, becoming disproportionate. At this point, no amount of glue is going to help you. There's only one thing left to do. Set that ruined block aside, buy a fresh piece of marble, and start the whole project over from scratch. The price of such a lesson is from 5 to 20,000 euros and up, depending on the value of the stone. The second problem is even more treacherous, and that's cracks. Marble isn't just a piece of matter, it's a natural organism that formed over millions of years. It has its own character, its own internal stresses. And the most frustrating part is that a crack can appear at the very last moment, when the work is almost finished. Where do they come from? Sometimes it's a hidden defect in the stone itself. But often it's the result of our own actions. A blow with a mallet that's too strong or sharp, an attempt to work across the stone's natural veins, or maybe vibration. Speaking of vibration, the tools play a key role here. I showed you my arsenal once. Everything from heavy-duty grinders for bulk removal to tiny dental burrs for the fine details. If you happen to miss that review, I highly recommend checking it out. An info card will appear right here. It'll help you better understand just how different the approach needs to be at every single stage. So if we've overheated the stone with a burr or caused too much vibration, the structure might not hold up. If the crack is small, we use a local epoxy fill, matching the color perfectly. Grain for grain. This costs from 200 to 600 euros. If the crack is noticeable and needs to be artistically integrated, hidden in folds or texture, then it's up to 2,000 euros for a restorer's work. But imagine if a crack treacherously runs right through the sculpture's face or a key element of the composition. Compromises are impossible here. This means a complete project halt and a restart. The loss can reach 30,000 euros. The third point is where it all begins: planning. There's such a temptation here to just grab a tool and start creating right away, thinking we'll figure it out as we go. When working with stone, that's a dead end. I always dedicate a massive amount of time to the preparation stage. Remember my Skycrafter project that took 172 days? A huge part of that time was spent on preparation, studying every building, and getting the perspective right so everything fit perfectly. When you're working with a block of material, you have to see the sculpture inside it before you even make that very first chip. A mistake in the layout here is fatal. You could simply fail to fit the stone's dimensions if you're off by just a couple of centimeters. A beautiful dark vein that looked so striking on the slab might suddenly run right through the focal point, creating an unwanted scar or crack effect, or an engineering error, like incorrect weight distribution. Imagine a composition with a thin base that simply might not support the entire mass under its own weight. Let's do the math. Good statuary marble, like Carrara, costs from 800 to 2,000 euros per cubic meter. A mistake during the planning stage means a guaranteed loss of the block, which is up to 15,000 euros. Plus, even more importantly, weeks or even months of work by the entire team are lost. Time, after all, is also an irreplaceable resource. And so it seems the worst is behind us. The sculpture is finished. It's alive. We're entering the home stretch, the polishing. But it's too early to relax. At this stage, we face the risk of so-called burn-throughs. One clumsy move with the polisher, an overheated disc, and a yellow stain appears on the snow-white stone. Or using the wrong chemicals that soak right into the pores. To fix polishing defects, you have to remove a layer of stone again. This costs anywhere from 150 to 1,500 euros. And if a burn-through forces a change in the part shape, the cost jumps to 5,000 euros. And finally, the end, the transportation. Even if I've done my job perfectly and the piece is on its way to the client, one careless loader, a sudden break, or poor crating, and the masterpiece can turn into a pile of marble shards. If a chip occurs on the road, restoration will cost between 200 and 800 euros. But if the work is shattered, that's a loss of 20,000 euros or more. And most importantly, it's a blow to your reputation, which, unlike stone, cannot be measured in money. Now let's take a look at this counter. If we add up all the risks of a large project, the chance of ruining a block, the need for a remake, lost time, restoration, logistics, the real cost of a mistake can easily exceed 50,000 euros, or even 70,000 euros. Marble is a huge responsibility. It's a risk that a master takes on every day when entering the workshop. So when you see an estimate for creating a sculpture or a bas-relief, I want you to understand one important thing. You're not just paying for what the master does with his hands, hammering, cutting, polishing. You're paying primarily for what he doesn't do, for the mistakes he knows how to foresee and prevent. You're paying for the experience that allows him to avoid these pitfalls. I know how to choose the right block without hidden cracks, how to calculate the load so the stone stands for centuries, and how to bring the surface to a mirror shine without any unpleasant surprises. If you dream of decorating your home, office, or garden with a work that will be crafted with the same love, care, and precision without those horror stories I told you about today, then write to me. My WhatsApp is on the screen and in the link in the description below the video. We'll discuss your idea. I'll prepare an estimate where there will be no room for chance, only art and quality. Thank you for watching until the end. If you were interested in taking a look at the dark side of the profession, like and subscribe. Let's create masterpieces together and let them be eternal. See you soon.